attempting to complete the Land's End to John O'Groats Cycling Challenge, using mostly wild camping. Last time we had the devastating loss of one of our teammates, but we did manage to conquer Wales. We also just spent the night at my parents' house. Let's see how well we can adapt back to the harsh conditions of wild camping. In the morning we shot off north, officially passing the border into Lancashire. We then continued north and stopped for lunch in the bustling city of Preston.
Alright, here we are now, day 8 in Preston. We've made so much progress lately, but I just haven't had the chance to record anything because we were going too quickly. We're up in the north of England now. We're actually in Lancashire, which is pretty cool. We spent last night in my parents' house, so we've had a chance to shower, we've freshened up. The morale is very high at the moment, and we are going to push on today, hopefully getting into the Yorkshire Dales. Back into the lands which I know best. Because I've never actually been that far west in Yorkshire, but you know, same thing.
Preston was a lovely spot, but we were soon on the road again, passing through the Forest of Bowland.
It's another area of outstanding natural beauty. Keep up the good work, boys.
After misgendering the dairy cows, which were clearly female, we entered another UK caving hotspot.
Finally, we're here. The Yorkshire Dales is an area which I will never reach on my York Review series, just because it's so far away from York that none of the towns in the Dales are within the scope of my show. So this trip gives me a rare opportunity to capture some footage of this beautiful area.
I was excited to be back in Yorkshire, even though the county was technically Cumbria.
It's been mostly sunny. We just have these scattered showers from time to time. No heavy rain though. We're very thankful for that. Barbon! This town is called Barbon.
Barbon is a Tier 7 village on the western edge of the Yorkshire Dales. Between 2001 and 2011, the area's population dropped by 10%, from 263 to 236. A fact which is so interesting, it's one of the 9 facts listed on their Wikipedia page. We just skirted around the outside of Barbon. We were in the mood for food, and we saw a bigger town looming on the horizon. Sedbergh is a Tier 4 town lying a few miles north of Barbon. The area is officially recognised as England's book town, home to many used and antique bookshops. Books are everywhere here. Their tourist information centre doubles up as a bookshop. Even this random person on Google Street View can be seen holding one of Sedbergh's many books. Dining space was limited here, but we managed to get a spot in the beer garden of the Dalesman. Now don't let these stock photos fool you. When we were there, the rain was really bad. We had to eat while huddled underneath the parasols outside. When there was a break in the rain, we shot off to look for a camping spot.
So the evenings are by far the most stressful time of day because we need to find a campsite. And our campsite has to fulfill a few pieces of criteria. Firstly, our tents can't be seen from the road. That's a big problem. We need big hedges. They can't be seen from houses, which is usually a problem because there are farmhouses like everywhere and we don't want them seeing us pitching up. We also need to avoid sheep. We can't go into fields with animals, which rules a lot of them out. We also want to be on flat terrain because we're very picky and we don't like sleeping on inclines. So that usually means that we're cycling around after we've done our day of cycling for about an extra 20-30 minutes. But tonight I think I have found a very good spot. Now the best way of finding these places is to look for signs like this. Public footpath. If you find yourself a public footpath, there's a chance there's going to be a gate you can be able to walk through. You'll probably end up in a field with surrounded by hedges, and you can just sort of plonk up your tent behind there. And that's what we've done. That's what we found to be our most successful technique so far, and that is how I found this beauty tonight.
With our spot secure, we climbed into the tents before the rain could return. Today we had travelled 75 miles and reached 486 miles total. It was another great day. Hopefully the skies would clear overnight and we'd have a dry, productive day tomorrow.
So, 'Cause 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 ' It's our first wet morning. It looks grim, but it's not actually that bad. It's quite cool. You can see the clouds on the hills.
But the clouds looked a lot less cool when we were actually in them.
It's an absolutely miserable morning. This isn't what you want to be greeting with when you wake up.
I don't have much rain footage. It's hard summoning the motivation to start recording in conditions like this. And I did feel quite bad making Andy and Paul wait for me to sort my camera stuff out.
Hey, just want to get some footage of the rain. People need to know.
As the man in front, I was also the one to shout out the road obstacles. Just the usual stuff you'd find on country roads.
That's all good! Sheep! I'm better at this hill than I am.
Things started to get a little better later on. We left Yorkshire and moved towards the Lake District.
So we've just pulled into Shap, which I'm very excited about for two reasons. The first reason is because this is where we crossed the coast-to-coast route, which we walked about 4 years ago. And secondly, it's also about the halfway point of the entire cycle. So we've done about half the distance now, we're doing very good, and the weather's cleared up as well. It's going to be a great day.
So far we were just about managing with the journey as a whole. We mostly followed Google Maps round niche country roads, but these weren't always good to cycle on. But as we started to leave Shap, we stumbled across a game changer. The A6 was actually small enough to cycle along, and then we were flying up the country. Before we knew it, we had already reached Carlisle. Unfortunately, the A6 had run out, but this didn't matter as we were about to reach a major milestone.
We finally made it to Scotland! This trip might actually be successful. Just standing in Gretna Green at the moment, famous destination for couples who wanted to elope and get married, because I think it's easier to do that in Scotland than it was in England at the time. So now we press on, we get as much distance as we can in this beautiful weather, now that everything's cleared up. Scotland, great place.
Reaching Scotland was significant for a few reasons. Whilst camping is legal here, provided you aren't on farmland, it was a major morale boost, and the Wetherspoons breakfast served a different kind of sausage. There was also a lot more countryside in Scotland, which at first seemed wonderful. I can't tell you how nice it was cycling on this open road next to a little stream, especially after the washout from this morning.
What a place. Gorgeous.
But by the time we reached this bridge in Paddock Hole, things started to sink in. Scotland was not like England. It was the time of day when we started to crave food, but there was nothing around. And I'm not talking Pork Ellis nothing from day one, I'm talking absolutely nothing. The nearest place was Lockerbie, 7 miles away in the wrong direction. Hardly something we could just pop round for. We even checked if we could get a takeaway from Lockerbie delivered to our bridge, and shockingly, this wasn't available either. We couldn't just wing it in Scotland. If we took the most direct route to our destination, we would starve in the wilderness. It turns out Scottish civilization only exists along a few roads, and so we made a route change. We had a quick meal from our snacks and turned towards the A7. But in my haste to escape the back roads, I made my biggest navigational mistake yet. We were passing by the village of Bentpath and we should have turned left here, but I missed the turn and carried straight on. By the time I realised, we had travelled over a mile in the wrong direction. Now that doesn't sound like much compared to the distances we've been doing, but having to backtrack a mile at the end of the day was a crushing blow to morale, and it didn't get much better from there. After passing through Bentpath, a village so small its Wikipedia entry only has 46 words, we entered a back road so remote that the Google Street View ends here. All I have are just a few photos I found on the internet. Turns out we entered the grounds of the Westerhall estate. There weren't many people around, but the ones that were there didn't look pleased to see us. There was an eerie silence to this area, with a few strange monuments standing on the hills. The vibe of these grounds can be summed up with one word, which I think Andy and Paul would agree with, and that's creepy. We were glad to see the back of it, but we were tired after all that cycling. We were still surrounded by farms though, so we pitched up by the side of the A7. Hard to believe we got lost in Scotland the same day we struck our tents in Yorkshire. We cycled around 69 miles today, which took us to 555 miles total. That's a little confusing because it's hard to check with our route change. Hopefully the A7 could take us back into civilization tomorrow, and away from the back gardens of the posh Scottish landowners. Having camped by the roadside, we started cycling almost immediately, and had a breakfast in a Howick Wetherspoons. This is where I first tried the oddity that is the lawn sausage. It was good, but a part of me regrets not going for the haggis this trip. Today we mostly stuck to the A7, and it didn't disappoint. Smooth roads with no need for navigation, what's not to love? We only briefly left to check out the beautiful village of Stow, where we had a spot of lunch.
We're making good progress today. I'm very happy about the sun. Should be able to press into Edinburgh by the end of the night, but we're just stopping in a little village called Stow at the moment. We're having some lunch. I have to say, I'm very impressed with the range of food on offer at the post office.
The ultimate goal of the day was Edinburgh, but not for wild camping. Paul had some accommodation here, and we were determined to reach it before the end of the day. Cycling around a capital city has its ups and downs, especially Edinburgh as it's quite hilly. First you notice the traffic. You have these difficult turns around multi-lane roads one moment, and then you're squeezing between buses and learner drivers the next. There are also some very cool things around too.
The Surprise Mountain.
We cycled towards the Arthur's Seat Mountain until we entered Holyrood Park. Now this is a beautiful place to cycle around. The scenery here was fantastic. I was having a great time, even if I did have a chain jam on a roundabout.
Awful place.
This is just a weird quirk of my bike which happens from time to time. I unjammed the chain and eventually we arrived at Paul's place. Our hosts were very gracious. We washed our clothes, had showers, and even made overnight oats. There's nothing like a few days of wild camping to make you really appreciate the things that most people would find mundane. We slept that night having cycled around 80 miles, reaching a total mileage of about 670. Again, this is a bit of a guess due to our Scottish route change. Either way, it was starting to feel like we were close, even though there was a lot of Scotland left to conquer. You know those days where I forget to record much footage? Well, I hope you like bridges. We left north past Edinburgh, taking one of 3 bridges over the River Forth. The bridge to our left was reserved for a motorway, and to our right was the train bridge.
It looks like the cycle path was an afterthought. It's not really connected to the road that well. I'm glad they did it.
This bridge stood out as being one of the longer ones we crossed. It's over 1 kilometre long, but not quite as long as the Severn Bridge into Wales. After the bridge, we approached one of Scotland's many beauty spots.
What is that? Giant stretch of water. Paul, do you know what that is? The water? Loch Leven? Nice. We've been climbing for the past hour and it's now time to pay it off. One glorious descent.
We descended a total height of about 1.1 Quantock Hills, and we were ready to speed down the road. The altitude change coming down the hill was incredible. I was shocked.
My ears popped. Oh my god, that was fantastic.
But the efficiency didn't stop there, and we were soon on the easy-to-navigate A9. Not all of this was cycle-friendly, but we managed to join neighbouring country roads when it got too big for us. we chanced upon a very interesting hut for dinner. In the car park of Dunkeld train station, we found the Craft, which did excellent food. It was a real party atmosphere. We also had a brief competition about who could eat the most wasabi peas. Turns out I couldn't compete with Andy and Paul on this one. Those peas were evil. We didn't cycle much further before stopping. We had chanced upon a wild camper's paradise.
It's been really good cycling around Scotland. It's been really sunny, it's been really beautiful, and you even find these amazing camp spots because you're allowed to wild camp anywhere. So we've chosen this lovely little forest for tonight. But here's where it gets interesting, because now we have a bit of drama added to the trip. Because we have booked transport out of John O'Groats on the Saturday, which means we have 3 more days to finish this cycle. So if we don't finish in 3 days, we are not finishing at all. So the race is on.
Today we had cycled 70 miles and reached mile 740. It might look like 3 days to completion would be an easy goal, but Scotland is huge. John O'Groats was still over 200 miles away. All this time, Dom had been near, moving house to house up the country and hoping to rejoin when his knee healed. Sadly, this was as far north as he could come, and he still wasn't fit to ride. Our hopes of reuniting had to be abandoned. It was time to embark on the final phase of the journey. We've been all over the place in this one. I'm recording these intros and outros after I finished making the full video, so here's a little editor's note that I want to add just here. I didn't see this during the cycle, only during my editing, but at the end of that creepy road out of Bent Path, I think we camped next to some graves. And checking the historic street view, a new grave appeared the year we did this cycle. I don't really know what to make of all this. Was the trip cursed? Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the final part. Here we push on as fast as possible with a 3-day deadline looming over our heads.